The year is 1600. Čachtice Castle, perched atop a craggy hill overlooking the rolling hills of what is now Slovakia, stands as a testament to the Báthory family's wealth and influence. Within its formidable walls, life unfolds with an opulent rhythm. Servants scurry through echoing corridors, their footsteps muffled by thick tapestries. The air is heavy with the scent of beeswax candles and wood smoke, a fragrant blend that speaks of both piety and comfort. In the grand hall, a roaring fire crackles, casting flickering shadows on the ancestral portraits that line the walls, each a stern-faced reminder of the Báthory's long and storied lineage. At the heart of this privileged existence resides Countess Elizabeth Bthory, a woman whose beauty is as renowned as her family's power. Her skin, the color of fresh cream, is stretched taut over high cheekbones, framing eyes that possess a startling intensity. Her hair, a cascade of raven black, is often adorned with intricate braids and sparkling jewels. Elizabeth is not merely beautiful. She is intelligent, articulate, and possesses a sharp wit that can both charm and intimidate. She oversees her vast estates with a keen eye, demanding efficiency and obedience from her serfs and stewards. While she is generous to those who serve her well, she is also known for her ruthlessness when crossed. A harsh word, a missed deadline, or even a perceived slight can be met with swift and merciless punishment. Within the castle walls, a delicate dance of deference and ambition plays out. Servants vie for her attention, hoping to curry favor and improve their station. Local nobles seek her counsel, eager to benefit from her astute political mind. Yet, beneath the surface of this seemingly harmonious existence, a subtle tension simmers. Whispers circulate among the peasantry about harsh punishments meted out for minor infractions. Stories of disappearing girls from nearby villages begin to circulate, spoken in hushed tones and quickly silenced. The Countess's exacting standards and volatile temper create an atmosphere of apprehension, a sense that the opulent facade of Čachtice Castle conceals a darker reality. Elizabeth sits before a large, ornate mirror in her private chamber. The room is lavishly decorated with silk drapes, velvet cushions, and priceless artifacts. A team of maids flutters around her, attending to her every need. One carefully brushes her hair, another applies a delicate layer of powder to her face, while a third adjusts the folds of her exquisite gown. Elizabeth examines her reflection with a critical eye, her gaze lingering on the fine lines that are beginning to etch themselves around her eyes and mouth. She smooths her forehead with her fingers, as if trying to erase the subtle creases that betray the passage of time. A fleeting expression of anxiety flickers across her face. "Ilona," she says, her voice sharp, "do you see them? The wretched lines, are they more pronounced today?" Ilona Jo, her personal maid and closest confidant, steps forward, her expression carefully neutral. Ilona is a woman of indeterminate age, her face etched with the wisdom and weariness of a life spent in service. Her loyalty to Elizabeth is unquestionable, or so it seems. "My lady," Ilona replies, her voice soft and soothing, "you are imagining things. Your beauty is as radiant as ever. The lines are barely perceptible, mere shadows that only enhance your grace." Elizabeth studies her reflection again, unconvinced. "Flattery will get you nowhere, Ilona. I am not blind. I see the creeping signs of age, the gray hairs that sprout despite my best efforts, the subtle sag of my skin. Time is a thief, Ilona, stealing our youth and beauty piece by piece." She rises from her chair and paces the room, her silken gown rustling softly. "I cannot bear the thought of growing old, of losing my power and influence. Beauty is a weapon, Ilona, and I intend to wield it for as long as I possibly can." Ilona nods in agreement. "Indeed, my lady, beauty is a gift, and you possess it in abundance. But perhaps," she adds cautiously, "there are ways to preserve it, to slow the relentless march of time." Elizabeth stops pacing and fixes Ilona with a piercing stare. "What do you mean?" "There are remedies, my lady," Ilona whispers, "ancient secrets passed down through generations, elixirs and potions that promise to rejuvenate the skin and restore lost youth." Elizabeth's eyes widen with interest. "Tell me more." Ilona hesitates, her gaze flickering nervously. "These are dark arts, my lady, practices that are frowned upon by the church. They involve ingredients that are difficult to acquire." "Difficult but not impossible," Elizabeth presses, her voice laced with anticipation. "No, my lady," Ilona concedes, "not impossible, but they come at a price." Elizabeth waves her hand dismissively. "Price is no object. I will pay whatever it takes to preserve my beauty. Name your price, Ilona, and it shall be yours." Ilona smiles, a subtle, almost imperceptible flicker of something akin to triumph in her eyes. "Very well, my lady. I will begin my research. But I must warn you, the path to eternal youth is fraught with peril. Are you certain you are willing to risk it all?" Elizabeth laughs. a brittle, almost manic sound. "I am willing to risk anything, Ilona, anything to remain young and beautiful forever." Later that day, a traveling minstrel arrives at Čachtice Castle, seeking shelter and sustenance. He is a scrawny man with a weather-beaten face and calloused fingers, but he possesses a voice that can fill a room with melody, and a repertoire of songs that span centuries. He is granted entry and allowed to perform for the Countess and her court. As he strums his lute, he sings a ballad about the mythical figures who achieved eternal youth and beauty through supernatural means. He sings of ancient goddesses who bathed in sacred springs, of sorcerers who brewed potent elixirs, and of kings who made pacts with dark forces to prolong their lives. Elizabeth listens intently, her eyes fixed on the minstrel's face. "Tell me, minstrel," Elizabeth interrupts, her voice sharp. "Where did you learn these tales? What are your sources?" The minstrel, startled by her sudden interest, stammers nervously. "My lady," he replies, his voice trembling slightly, "these are just old stories, legends passed down through generations. I cannot say for certain where they originated." Elizabeth narrows her eyes. "Do not play coy with me. I know there is more to it than that. Tell me the truth. Where did you learn of these practices?" The minstrel hesitates, his gaze darting around the room. He senses the Countess's intensity, her unwavering determination to uncover the truth. He knows that to displease her would be a grave mistake. "My lady," he whispers, "I have heard rumors of ancient texts, magical treatises that contain the secrets of eternal youth. But I have never seen them myself. They are said to be hidden away in forgotten libraries and guarded by powerful sorcerers." "Where?" Elizabeth demands, her voice laced with impatience. "Where can I find these texts?" The minstrel shrinks back, fear etched on his face. "I do not know, my lady. I only know that they exist. Perhaps," he adds, grasping for an escape, "perhaps you could consult your own library. Surely a woman of your wealth and knowledge possesses books that contain ancient wisdom." Elizabeth dismisses him with a wave of her hand. "You may leave, but remember what I have asked you. If you learn anything more about these texts, you are to inform me immediately." The minstrel bows deeply and scurries away, relieved to escape the Countess's intense scrutiny. Elizabeth rises and strides towards her private library. A vast room filled with shelves overflowing with books of all shapes and sizes. She runs her fingers along the spines, searching for a clue, a hint that might lead her to the secrets she craves. She spends hours poring over ancient tomes, her brow furrowed in concentration. She reads of alchemy, astrology, and herbal medicine, searching for any mention of remedies for aging. She finds passages that speak of rejuvenation and restoration, but they are vague and cryptic, offering no concrete solutions. Frustration mounts within her, threatening to boil over into rage. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the room, Elizabeth slams a book shut in frustration. "Useless," she cries, her voice echoing through the silent library. "All of this knowledge, and none of it can help me achieve what I desire." Ilona enters the library, her face etched with concern. "My lady," she says softly, "you must rest. You have been working tirelessly all day. You must not exhaust yourself." Elizabeth turns to her, her eyes burning with a desperate intensity. "I cannot rest, Ilona. I cannot rest until I have found a way to stop the aging process. I will not allow myself to fade away, to become a withered old crone. I will find a way to remain young and beautiful, no matter the cost." Ilona nods sympathetically. "I understand, my lady, and I will help you. I will continue my research, and I will not rest until I have found the answers you seek." Elizabeth embraces Ilona, her grip tight. "Thank you, Ilona. You are the only one I can trust. You are my only true friend." As they stand together in the fading light, a sense of foreboding hangs in the air. The pursuit of eternal youth has consumed Elizabeth, driving her to the brink of obsession. And Ilona, with her own hidden agenda, is ready to lead her down a dark and dangerous path. Join us as we delve into the dark secrets of Countess Elizabeth Báthory. If you want to know the truth behind the legend, subscribe and like this video. The days that follow are filled with an increasing sense of unease at Čachtice Castle. Elizabeth's obsession with her appearance intensifies. She spends hours each day examining her reflection, scrutinizing every line and blemish. She demands constant reassurance from her maids, forcing them to shower her with compliments and deny the inevitable signs of aging. Her temper becomes even more volatile, and she lashes out at the slightest provocation. The servants live in constant fear, knowing that a single mistake could result in severe punishment. Ilona, meanwhile, continues her research, delving deeper into the forbidden arts. She spends hours in the castle's hidden chambers, poring over ancient texts and experimenting with strange concoctions. She speaks in hushed tones with local healers and wise women, seeking knowledge of forgotten remedies and dark rituals. The atmosphere within the castle becomes increasingly secretive and oppressive, as if a dark cloud has settled over its ancient stones. One evening, Elizabeth is preparing for a grand ball, a lavish affair designed to showcase her wealth and beauty. She is dressed in a magnificent gown of crimson velvet, adorned with pearls and diamonds. Her hair is arranged in an elaborate style, and her face is carefully made up to conceal the subtle signs of age. As she stands before the mirror, admiring her reflection, she notices a small imperfection on her cheek, a tiny blemish that mars her flawless complexion. "Ilona!" she cries, her voice filled with fury. "What is this? What is this hideous mark on my face?" Ilona rushes to her side, her face etched with concern. "My lady," she says soothingly, "it is nothing, a mere imperfection. It can easily be concealed with a little powder." "Concealed?" Elizabeth retorts, her eyes blazing with anger. "I do not want it concealed, I want it gone. I want my skin to be flawless, perfect, like it was when I was a young girl." She slaps Ilona across the face, the force of the blow sending the maid reeling. "Find a way to remove this mark, Ilona. Find a way to restore my skin to its former glory. I will not tolerate imperfection." Ilona, her cheek stinging from the blow, bows her head and whispers, "Yes, my lady, I will do everything in my power." As Elizabeth descends the grand staircase, her crimson gown swirling around her, she exudes an aura of power and beauty. But beneath the surface, a deep-seated fear gnaws at her. A fear of losing her youth, her beauty, and her control. She knows that time is running out, and she is willing to do anything, no matter how drastic, to hold on to the fleeting illusion of eternal youth. Political pressure is also mounting. King Matthias II, though distant, is aware of the murmurs surrounding Elizabeth and Čachtice Castle. The disappearances, the harsh treatment of serfs, these are not entirely secret. While the Báthory name carries weight, even noble houses can fall under suspicion, especially if whispers of impiety and cruelty reach the right ears. Messengers from the king arrive with increasing frequency, ostensibly to discuss estate matters, but their questions are pointed, their gazes lingering, assessing. Elizabeth deftly navigates these encounters, employing her charm and intelligence to deflect suspicion. But she understands the precariousness of her position. One wrong move, one undeniable scandal, and the full weight of the kingdom could fall upon her. The local clergy, too, present a silent opposition. The village priest, Father Balaj, a kind and gentle man, has heard the whispers about the missing girls. He has seen the fear in the eyes of the villagers, the unspoken grief of the families who have lost loved ones. He suspects that something sinister is happening at Čachtice Castle, but he lacks the evidence to confront the Countess directly. He prays for the souls of the lost girls, and for the courage to speak out against the darkness that he senses is consuming the land. His sermons become subtly more pointed, warning against the dangers of vanity and the consequences of sin. Elizabeth, aware of his veiled criticisms, dismisses him as a meddling fool, but she cannot ignore the growing unease that his words inspire among her serfs. The seeds of doubt have been sown, and she knows that she must tread carefully to maintain her authority. The initial appearance of stability is crumbling, revealing a fractured foundation of fear, suspicion, and silent defiance. The opulent life at Čachtice Castle is built upon a precarious precipice. The winter descended upon Čachtice Castle with a ferocity that mirrored the growing chill within Elizabeth's heart. The once vibrant tapestries now seemed to droop, heavy with the damp cold that seeped through the ancient stone walls. Fires roared in the hearths, yet they offered little solace against the penetrating cold that seemed to cling to Elizabeth, exacerbating her anxieties. The biting wind howled outside, a constant reminder of the relentless passage of time, a sound that whispered of decay and loss. Even the meticulously maintained gardens were now buried beneath a blanket of snow, their vibrant colors replaced by a desolate white that reflected the pallor of Elizabeth's increasing dread. The castle, usually a haven of warmth and indulgence, became a prison of icy draughts and long dark nights. Elizabeth found herself retreating further into her private chambers, spending hours before the ornate mirror, meticulously examining her reflection. Each new wrinkle, each stray gray hair was a fresh assault, a brutal reminder of her mortality. The elaborate gowns and jewels, once sources of pride, now felt like heavy burdens, inadequate attempts to mask the perceived ravages of time. Her temper, already volatile, became even more unpredictable, fueled by her mounting desperation and the gnawing fear of losing her beauty and, consequently, her power. One particularly harsh afternoon, as a blizzard raged outside, Elizabeth summoned a new serving girl to assist her with her toilette. The girl, barely more than a child, trembled with nervousness as she attempted to arrange Elizabeth's elaborate hairstyle. Her hands, clumsy with fear, fumbled with the intricate braids, causing Elizabeth a moment of sharp pain. In a fit of uncontrollable rage, Elizabeth lashed out, striking the girl across the face with the back of her hand. The girl stumbled backward, her lip split and bleeding. A single drop of crimson blood splashed onto Elizabeth's hand, staining the delicate lace of her sleeve. The girl, terrified and sobbing, scurried from the room, leaving Elizabeth standing alone before the mirror, her heart pounding with a mixture of fury and shame. As she stared at the drop of blood on her hand, a strange sensation washed over her. It felt cold, yes, but also strangely invigorating. Almost instinctively, she wiped the blood across her skin, noticing, or perhaps imagining, a subtle tightening, a fleeting return of youthful elasticity. The mark faded quickly, but the seed of a disturbing idea had been planted. Later that evening, as Elizabeth sat by the fire, her mind raced with conflicting thoughts. She felt a sense of profound guilt for her violent outburst, a rare occurrence quickly supplanted by a growing sense of fascination. Had she truly felt a change in her skin? Was it merely her imagination, fueled by her desperate desire? She replayed the moment in her mind, analyzing every detail, searching for some rational explanation, yet finding none. Ilona Jo, ever watchful and perceptive, entered the room with a tray of warmed wine and cakes. She had witnessed the incident earlier, and had observed Elizabeth's reaction with keen interest. Ilona, a woman of indeterminate age and unsettlingly calm demeanor, possessed an almost unnerving ability to anticipate Elizabeth's needs and desires. She was more than just a maid. She was a confidant, a silent observer, and perhaps a subtle manipulator. "My lady seems troubled," Ilona said softly, her voice smooth and soothing. Elizabeth hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to confide in Ilona. She had always valued Ilona's discretion and loyalty, but this was a secret that felt dangerous, a thought that bordered on madness. Yet, the need to share her experience, to seek validation for her belief, was overwhelming. "Something happened today, Ilona," Elizabeth began, her voice barely above a whisper. I struck a serving girl, and her blood splashed onto my hand, and I swear, Ilona, I felt something. A tightening, a rejuvenation." Ilona listened intently, her expression unreadable. She did not interrupt, did not offer judgment, but simply waited for Elizabeth to continue. "I know it sounds absurd," Elizabeth continued, her voice gaining confidence. "But what if there is something to it? What if blood possesses some vital essence that can restore youth?" Ilona remained silent for a long moment, her eyes fixed on the flickering flames of the fire. Then she spoke, her voice low and deliberate. "My lady has a keen eye for observation," she said. "The ancients believed that blood held great power, the very essence of life itself." Elizabeth leaned forward, her eyes wide with anticipation. And what if," she stammered, "what if the blood of a young, healthy virgin possessed even greater potency?" Ilona's silence stretched on, amplifying the weight of Elizabeth's unspoken question. Finally she spoke, her voice barely audible. "Such a thing is only whispered of in legends, my lady," she said. "Dark legends, best left undisturbed." Elizabeth's heart pounded in her chest. Ilona had not dismissed the idea as madness. She had acknowledged its existence, its potential. The line between fantasy and reality blurred, and Elizabeth found herself teetering on the edge of a precipice. But what if those legends are true, Ilona?" she pressed, her voice filled with a desperate hope. "What if the key to eternal youth lies within the very thing we fear most?" Ilona sighed softly. "The pursuit of such power comes at a terrible price, my lady," she warned. "A price that may be too high to pay." Elizabeth dismissed Ilona's warning with a wave of her hand. "What is a price," she declared, "compared to the preservation of my beauty, my power, my very existence?" Ilona did not respond, but her silence spoke volumes. She knew that Elizabeth had already made her decision. The seed of madness had taken root, and the consequences would be devastating. In the days that followed, Elizabeth's obsession with the rejuvenating power of blood consumed her every waking thought. She spent hours poring over ancient texts, searching for any mention of the practice, any confirmation of her growing belief. She consulted with alchemists and apothecaries, seeking their knowledge of blood's properties and potential uses. She became secretive and withdrawn, confiding only in Ilona, who subtly fueled her obsession with carefully chosen words and veiled suggestions. The first candidates were chosen discreetly, young peasant girls from the surrounding villages who disappeared without a trace. Their families, accustomed to the harsh realities of life, initially attributed their disappearances to illness, accidents, or the dangers of the wilderness. A few whispered of wolves, others of bandits, but none dared to suspect the Countess. Elizabeth, driven by her insatiable hunger, supervised the initial experiments herself. The results were inconclusive. She felt a fleeting sense of invigoration, a momentary tightening of her skin, but the effects were short-lived and ultimately unsatisfying. She became increasingly frustrated, her temper growing more volatile with each failed attempt. Ilona, ever the pragmatist, suggested that the methods were flawed, that the blood needed to be applied in a more direct manner. She proposed a radical solution, one that made even Elizabeth shudder. Bathing in the blood, Ilona suggested, her voice cold and clinical, submerging the entire body, allowing the essence to penetrate every pore. Elizabeth recoiled at the thought, repulsed by the sheer barbarity of the idea. But the desire to regain her youth, to stave off the inevitable decline, outweighed her revulsion. She agreed, and the preparations began. The killings became more frequent, the methods more brutal. Elizabeth's servants, Dorco and Fico, two hulking brutes with a penchant for violence, were tasked with procuring the candidates and carrying out the gruesome acts. They reveled in their newfound power, their loyalty bought with promises of riches and immunity. Ilona orchestrated the entire operation, ensuring that no detail was overlooked, that no evidence was left behind. Elizabeth, initially a reluctant participant, gradually succumbed to the allure of the ritual. She convinced herself that she was not committing murder, but rather extracting the vital essence of life, a necessary sacrifice for the preservation of her own beauty. She became detached and emotionless, viewing the victims as mere vessels, their lives insignificant compared to her own. For a time, Elizabeth believed that her efforts were paying off. She perceived a subtle improvement in her appearance, a renewed vibrancy in her skin, a spark of youthfulness in her eyes. She attributed this to the bloodbaths, ignoring the fact that she was also using copious amounts of makeup, wearing elaborate wigs, and avoiding sunlight. Her delusion deepened, fueled by her own vanity and the sycophantic praise of her servants. But the disappearances did not go unnoticed. Whispers began to circulate in the surrounding villages, rumors of a dark curse hanging over Čachtice Castle. Parents warned their daughters to stay away from the castle grounds, and travelers avoided the area altogether. The local authorities, initially hesitant to investigate a woman of such high standing, began to receive anonymous letters detailing the alleged crimes. King Matthias II, growing increasingly concerned about the rumors and the potential for unrest, dispatched Georg Thurzo, the Palatine of Hungary, to investigate. Thurzo, a man of unwavering integrity and a staunch believer in justice, arrived at Čachtice Castle unannounced, accompanied by a contingent of armed guards. The arrival of Thurzo sent a wave of panic through the castle. Elizabeth, caught off guard, attempted to maintain a facade of composure, but her carefully constructed world was crumbling around her. Ilona, Dorco, and Fico frantically tried to conceal the evidence of their crimes, but the stench of death and decay permeated the very walls of the castle. Thurzo, undeterred by Elizabeth's protests and denials, ordered a thorough search of the castle. The gruesome discoveries were beyond anything he could have imagined. Hidden chambers filled with torture instruments, blood-stained walls, and the mutilated corpses of young girls confirmed the worst of the rumors. The climax came when Thurzo and his men stumbled upon Elizabeth in the midst of one of her bloodbaths. She was naked, covered in blood, her face contorted with a mixture of terror and defiance. The sight was so grotesque, so shocking, that even the hardened soldiers recoiled in horror. Elizabeth was arrested on the spot, her reign of terror finally brought to an end. The illusion of youth and beauty, meticulously crafted and brutally maintained, shattered into a million pieces, revealing the cold, cruel reality beneath. The power dynamics shifted in an instant. She had lost control completely. Her descent into madness was now complete, and the consequences would be dire. The uncertainty of her fate loomed large. A dark shadow cast over the once proud Countess of Čachtice. The pace quickened. Villages that once seemed distant now bled into one another. The whispers carried on the wind as easily as dust. Each disappearance sharpened the next, the illusion of accidents or illnesses dissolving like morning mist. Elizabeth, basking in the fleeting glow of perceived rejuvenation, demanded more. Ilona, Joe, Dorco, and Fico, their consciences long since cauterized, operated with a chilling efficiency. Young women, lured with promises of work within the castle walls, vanished without a trace. Their families, initially hopeful, grew increasingly desperate. Whispers turned to murmurs, then to hushed accusations directed towards the looming silhouette of Čachtice Castle. The local priest, Father Elizabeth, a man known for his unwavering faith and concern for his flock, began to document the unsettling pattern. He compiled a list of the missing, noting their ages, their families, and the circumstances surrounding their disappearances. He tried to speak with the villagers, offering solace and urging caution, but fear was a more potent force than faith. One villager, a widowed woodcutter named Janos, whose daughter Anna had been the latest to vanish, dared to travel to the neighboring town of Vieszka to seek an audience with a magistrate. His tale, delivered in a trembling voice, was met with skepticism. The magistrate, a portly man more concerned with maintaining the peace than investigating rumors, dismissed Janos as a grieving father driven mad by sorrow. However, Janos's persistence, coupled with the growing unease in the region, prompted the magistrate to send a guarded report to the regional authorities, hinting at the possibility of foul play at Čachtice Castle. The report, after several bureaucratic delays, eventually reached the desk of Georg Thurzo, the Palatine of Hungary, and a man known for his unwavering loyalty to King Matthias II. Thurzo, a shrewd and experienced statesman, recognized the potential for serious trouble. A powerful noblewoman, accused of heinous crimes, could destabilize the entire region and threaten the king's authority. He decided to investigate the matter personally, but with utmost discretion. Thurzo dispatched a small contingent of his most trusted men, disguised as merchants and travelers, to gather information and assess the situation. They were instructed to avoid direct confrontation and to report back with solid evidence, not just rumors and hearsay. The men fanned out across the countryside, discreetly questioning villagers, observing the movements of the castle staff and scrutinizing the local markets for any signs of unusual activity. Meanwhile, within Čachtice Castle, Elizabeth's paranoia escalated. She trusted no one completely, even Ilona Jo, whom she suspected of harboring secrets and perhaps even plotting against her. The perceived benefits of the bloodbaths were diminishing, requiring more and more victims to achieve the same fleeting effect. She became increasingly irritable and unpredictable, lashing out at her servants for the slightest perceived infraction. The castle transformed into a prison, its opulent halls echoing with fear and suspicion. The servants, once eager to please, now moved with trepidation, their eyes darting nervously, their voices hushed. The constant fear of discovery gnawed at them, eroding their loyalty and fueling their resentment. Dorko, a hulking brute known for his ruthlessness, began to drink heavily, seeking solace in alcohol and boasting in taverns about his exploits, often skirting dangerously close to revealing the truth. Fico, the youngest of the accomplices, was plagued by nightmares and fits of conscience, threatening to crack under the pressure. Ilona Jo, ever the pragmatist, saw the unraveling and recognized the danger. She attempted to tighten her control over the other servants, reminding them of their shared culpability and the dire consequences of betrayal. She also tried to reassure Elizabeth, feeding her ego with false compliments and suggesting increasingly audacious methods to procure victims. One such method involved luring young women from distant villages with promises of lucrative employment at the castle. Ilona dispatched messengers to spread the word, targeting impoverished families desperate for any opportunity to improve their circumstances. The messengers painted a rosy picture of life at Čachtice Castle, exaggerating the wages and minimizing the workload. They offered advance payments to entice families to send their daughters, exploiting their vulnerability and desperation. Several young women, seduced by the promises of a better life, arrived at Čachtice Castle, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. They were greeted with false warmth and ushered into comfortable chambers, only to be imprisoned and subjected to unspeakable tortures. Elizabeth, driven by her insatiable thirst for youth, oversaw the gruesome proceedings with a cold detachment, reveling in the screams and the flow of blood. The messengers dispatched by Thurzo returned with a chilling report. They had uncovered a network of disappearances, a trail of terrified villagers, and undeniable evidence pointing towards Čachtice Castle. They had interviewed witnesses who claimed to have seen young women being dragged into the castle, never to be seen again. They had discovered blood-stained clothing and discarded torture instruments in the surrounding woods. They had even overheard Dorko's drunken boasts, confirming the rumors of unspeakable atrocities. Thurzo, upon receiving the report, knew that he could no longer delay. He assembled a larger force of armed men, sworn to secrecy and loyal to the king, and prepared to raid Čachtice Castle. He understood the gravity of the situation and the potential political repercussions of confronting a powerful noblewoman like Elizabeth Báthory. But he also knew that he had a duty to uphold the law, and to protect the innocent. Under the cover of darkness, Thurzo and his men approached Čachtice Castle. They moved swiftly and silently, scaling the walls and overpowering the guards. They secured the main gates and fanned out across the castle grounds, searching for evidence of the crimes. The raid was swift and brutal. The castle servants, caught off guard and terrified, offered little resistance. Thurzo's men discovered hidden dungeons, torture chambers, and secret passages. They found the remains of countless victims, their bodies mutilated and drained of blood. The stench of death permeated the air, a testament to the horrors that had unfolded within those walls. In one of the castle's hidden chambers, they found Elizabeth Báthory, surrounded by her accomplices, preparing for another bloodbath. She was caught red-handed, her face smeared with blood, her eyes burning with a feverish intensity. The sight that greeted Thurzo and his men was so gruesome that even the hardened soldiers recoiled in horror. Elizabeth, defiant to the end, denied all accusations and claimed that she was being framed by her enemies. But the evidence was overwhelming, the bodies of her victims lying scattered around her like discarded playthings. Thurzo, his face grim, ordered her arrest and the apprehension of her accomplices. Ilona, Joe, Dorco, and Fico were dragged away, screaming and protesting their innocence. They attempted to shift the blame onto Elizabeth, accusing her of masterminding the entire operation. But their pleas fell on deaf ears. They were bound and imprisoned, awaiting their fate. Elizabeth, despite her protests, was placed under heavy guard and confined to her chambers. She railed against her captors, invoking her noble status and threatening them with the wrath of her powerful family. But her words were hollow, her power stripped away. She was a prisoner in her own castle, surrounded by the evidence of her depravity. The news of Elizabeth Báthory's arrest and the discovery of her crimes spread like wildfire across the kingdom. People were shocked and outraged by the revelations. They demanded justice and called for the Countess to be held accountable for her heinous acts. King Matthias II, upon hearing the news, was deeply disturbed. He recognized the potential for political instability and ordered a thorough investigation into the matter. Thurzo, acting on the king's orders, convened a special tribunal to investigate the crimes committed at Čachtice Castle. The tribunal consisted of prominent nobles, legal experts, and clergymen. They were tasked with gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, and determining the guilt or innocence of the accused. The trial, though not a formal public spectacle for Elizabeth herself, was a long and arduous process. Numerous witnesses came forward, recounting their experiences and providing damning evidence against Elizabeth and her accomplices. Villagers testified about the disappearances of their daughters, detailing the promises made by the castle messengers, and the growing fear that had gripped the region. Former castle servants, motivated by guilt and fear, revealed the inner workings of the bloodbath rituals and the horrific tortures inflicted upon the victims. The evidence presented was overwhelming. The tribunal concluded that Elizabeth Báthory and her accomplices were guilty of unspeakable crimes. They had tortured and murdered countless young women, driven by a depraved desire for eternal youth and power. The tribunal recommended that the guilty parties be punished to the full extent of the law. However, due to Elizabeth's noble status and the political implications of publicly executing a countess, King Matthias II intervened. He commuted Elizabeth's death sentence to life imprisonment. She was to be walled up alive in a room within Čachtice Castle, with only a small opening for food and water. This was a common practice for nobles deemed too powerful or influential to be publicly executed. Her accomplices, however, were not spared. Ilona, Joe, Dorco, and Fico were tried, convicted, and sentenced to death. They were subjected to gruesome public executions, their bodies broken on the wheel and left to rot as a warning to others. Their crimes were deemed so heinous that they deserved the most severe punishment imaginable. Elizabeth, walled up alive in her prison, was left to contemplate her fate. She was stripped of her power, her wealth, and her freedom. She was alone, isolated, and forgotten. The castle that had once been a symbol of her power and prestige became her tomb. The final scene shows Čachtice Castle standing desolate and imposing against the backdrop of the Carpathian Mountains. The wind howls through its empty halls, carrying the echoes of screams and the whispers of forgotten souls. The castle stands as a stark reminder of the horrors that occurred within its walls, a testament to the dark side of human nature and the corrupting influence of power and vanity. The trap had sprung, and Elizabeth Báthory, the Blood Countess, was finally consumed by the darkness she had embraced. The stench hit Thurzo first, a cloying, metallic sweetness that clung to the back of his throat. The scene inside Čachtice Castle defied description. a tableau of horror so grotesque it threatened to unravel the sanity of even the most hardened soldiers. The discovery in the upper chambers was beyond anything he could have imagined. Whispered rumors amplified tenfold. Elizabeth Báthory, Countess of Čachtice, was arrested. Word spread like wildfire, from the peasant villages huddled in the shadow of the Carpathian Mountains to the bustling courts of Vienna and Prague. The news of the Blood Countess's alleged crimes sent shockwaves through the Kingdom of Hungary. The sheer scale of the depravity, the systematic torture and murder of young women was almost incomprehensible. How could a woman of such high standing, a member of one of the most powerful and influential families in the land, descend into such unimaginable darkness? The king, Matthias II, faced a dilemma. Báthory was not some petty criminal to be summarily executed. She was a countess, a landowner, a woman of immense wealth and powerful connections. To publicly execute her would be to risk political upheaval, to alienate her family and their allies, and to potentially destabilize the entire region. But to let her go unpunished would be to invite outrage and rebellion from the populace, to send a message that the nobility were above the law. A formal trial, in the traditional sense, never took place. The king, advised by his counselors, deemed it too dangerous, too unpredictable. Instead, a special tribunal was convened, composed of royal officials and trusted members of the clergy. Evidence gathered during the raid on Čachtice Castle was presented. The testimonies of surviving witnesses, the blood-stained instruments of torture, the accounts of villagers who had lost daughters and sisters to the countess's insatiable thirst. The weight of the evidence was overwhelming. The tribunal found Elizabeth Báthory guilty of unspeakable crimes against humanity. But due to her noble status and the potential for political fallout, the king decreed that she would not be publicly executed. Instead, she would be sentenced to immurement, walled up alive within a room in Čachtice Castle to live out the remainder of her days in solitary confinement. Her servants, however, were not afforded the same consideration. Ilona Jo, Dorko, and Fico, the countess's accomplices in her reign of terror, were brought to trial in a public square in Bykski. They were charged with aiding and abetting Elizabeth Báthory in her crimes, with actively participating in the torture and murder of innocent young women. The trial was swift and brutal. The evidence against them was damning. Witnesses testified to their cruelty, to their willing participation in the countess's sadistic rituals. They were found guilty on all counts. The sentence was carried out with ruthless efficiency. Dorko and Fico, the male servants, were beheaded. Ilona Jo, considered the mastermind behind the countess's descent into madness, was subjected to a more gruesome punishment. Her fingers were torn from her hands with hot pincers, and she was then burned alive at the stake. Their bodies were left on public display as a warning to anyone who might consider following in their footsteps. Back at Čachtice Castle, the sentence against Elizabeth Báthory was carried out. A small room was chosen, located within the castle walls. The windows were bricked up, the door sealed shut. A single opening was left, just large enough to pass in food and water. The countess was led into the room, her face pale and drawn. She offered no resistance, no protest. The weight of her crimes, the realization of her impending fate, seemed to have finally broken her spirit. The door slammed shut, the bricks were mortared into place. The countess was entombed. The silence within the room was absolute. For the next 4 years, Elizabeth Báthory lived out her days in that solitary confinement. The world outside continued on, oblivious to her existence. The seasons changed, kings rose and fell. Wars were fought and won. But within the walls of Čachtice Castle, time stood still. She received minimal rations, enough to sustain her life, but not enough to ease her suffering. There were no tapestries, no finery, no reminders of her former life of luxury and privilege. Only the bare stone walls, the cold, damp air, and the gnawing solitude. Some whispered that she repented her sins in those final years, that she prayed for forgiveness and sought redemption. Others claimed that she remained defiant to the end, cursing her enemies and plotting her revenge. The truth, however, remained locked within the walls of her prison, known only to her and to God. In August of 1614, the guards noticed that she had not touched her food for several days. They peered through the opening and saw her lying motionless on the floor. Elizabeth Báthory, the Blood Countess of Čachtice, was dead. The news of her death was met with a mixture of relief and morbid fascination. The reign of terror was finally over. The monster had been vanquished, but the legend of the Blood Countess lived on, whispered in hushed tones around campfires and passed down through generations. Her body was not given a proper burial, deemed unworthy of consecrated ground. Some say she was buried in the castle crypt. Others claim she was interred in an unmarked grave in a nearby village. The exact location of her final resting place remains a mystery to this day. The castle itself fell into disrepair. The local villagers avoided it. Haunted by the memories of the atrocities that had occurred within its walls, it became a symbol of evil, a monument to the dark side of human nature. Over the centuries, Čachtice Castle has been ravaged by wars, abandoned to the elements and plundered by treasure hunters. But its imposing silhouette still dominates the landscape, a stark reminder of the horrors that transpired within its stone walls. The legend of Elizabeth Báthory has been embellished over time, transforming her from a cruel and ruthless aristocrat into a mythical figure, a vampire-like creature who bathed in the blood of virgins to maintain her youth. The truth, however, is far more disturbing. Elizabeth Báthory was not a monster in the supernatural sense. She was a human being, capable of both great cruelty and profound depravity. Her story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, the corrosive effects of vanity, and the darkness that can lurk within the human heart. In the aftermath, the region surrounding Čachtice Castle slowly began to heal. The villagers, freed from the fear of the Countess and her henchmen, began to rebuild their lives. The fields were tilled, the crops were harvested, and the sounds of laughter and music once again filled the air. However, the shadow of Elizabeth Báthory continued to linger, a constant reminder of the horrors that had transpired. Parents would warn their children to stay away from the castle, telling them tales of the Blood Countess and her insatiable thirst for blood. The name Elizabeth Báthory became synonymous with evil, a symbol of the depths to which human beings can sink. The families of the victims, however, never truly recovered. The loss of their daughters and sisters left a void in their lives that could never be filled. They carried the burden of grief and the scars of trauma for the rest of their days. In the years that followed, the Hungarian authorities attempted to erase the memory of Elizabeth Báthory from the history books. Her name was rarely mentioned in official documents, and her story was largely suppressed. But the legend of the Blood Countess proved impossible to extinguish. The story of Elizabeth Báthory continues to fascinate and horrify people to this day. Her name is invoked in books, movies, and television shows, often portrayed as a figure of pure evil. But the truth is far more complex and nuanced. Elizabeth Báthory was a product of her time, a woman of immense wealth and power who lived in a world where violence and cruelty were commonplace. She was also a victim of her own insecurities and obsessions, driven by a desperate desire to maintain her youth and beauty. Her story is a reminder that even the most privileged and powerful individuals are capable of committing unspeakable acts. It is also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the ability of ordinary people to overcome even the most horrific circumstances. Čachtice Castle stands today as a haunting reminder of the past, a silent witness to the atrocities that occurred within its walls. It is a place of darkness and sorrow, a place where the echoes of screams can still be heard on the wind. The legend of Elizabeth Báthory, the Blood Countess, will continue to live on, a chilling reminder of the dark side of human nature. And the world is left to contemplate the abyss into which vanity and unchecked power can lead. The castle remained silent,